Right. Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, fellow advocates for the creative industries, Masantos Yaagod Sikayon Amin, greetings in creativity and happy Philippine Creative Industries Month po sa ating lahat. This is the second year we're celebrating this occasion nationwide in compliance with Republic Act 11904 or the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act. This was conceived to mainstream awareness of this emerging sector and the role of creative industries in nation building, and to help promote goods, products, and services of the creative sector. I invite everyone to explore the Creative Industry Month website. It's on the screen, www.pcim.ph. We launched this earlier today in Trinoma as part of the Creative Industry Month launch. And here you can find the full schedule of programs and activities planned for the whole month. Remember to follow the hashtag #WeAreACreativeNation to stay updated with the latest news and happenings. And I'm optimistic that this year's celebration will be an even bigger one. So, it is an honor to speak before you today on a subject that is vital to the future of our global economy, the creative economy. The UNCTAD Creative Economy Outlook 2024 provides us with a comprehensive understanding of the state of the creative economy, and its findings are both inspiring as well as challenging. Today, allow me to share with you the key findings of the report and how they shape our path forward. Global trends. Mr. Speaker, the creative economy is a rapidly growing component of the global economy, generating nearly $2.3 annually, which accounts for 3.1% of the global GDP. This was reflected in the 2022 and 2023 UNESCO reports. Despite the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the creative industries remain crucial for economic development, particularly in developing countries. In the Philippines Statistics Authority reported that in 2023, our country's creative economy amounted to 1.72 trillion pesos. That's 7.1% of gross domestic product, and it represents a 6.9% increase from the 1.61 trillion pesos tallied in the year 2022. In the third quarter of the same year alone, the creative industries grew by a whopping 15.5% year-on-year, according to the DTI and the PSA. Further, employment in the cultural and creative industries represents 6.2% of global employment, although this varies significantly across countries, with sectors' share in GDP ranging from either 0.5% to 7.3%, and employment contributions ranging from 0.5% to as much as 12.5%. In the Philippines Statistics Authority reported that in 2023, 7.26 million Filipinos were employed in the creative industries, accounting for 14.3% of our labor force. O, diba? It's really so significant. So this figure grew by 4% from 6.98 million individuals employed in the year 2022. In advertising, global advertising revenues were estimated to be $806 billion in 2023, driven by the growth of digital advertising, which constitutes 57.7% of total ad spending. This share is expected to surpass 60% by the year 2026, with video game advertising emerging as a significant growth area. In architecture, the global interior design market's top 100 firms generated $4.97 billion in professional fees in the year 2022. Notably, architectural firms from developing countries, including the Philippines, which registered 6 firms, are increasingly represented among the world's largest. Mr. Speaker, to sustain and amplify the Philippines' rank on the world stage, we must endorse legislative initiatives like House Bill 2679, mandating the establishment of public architects' offices in all LGUs, which would necessitate the presence of provincial, city, and municipal architects, alongside build, build, build should be design, design, design. A well-designed public infrastructure impacts not only productivity but also tourism and urban development, as well as community ownership and social inclusion. Now let's move on to another creative sector, film and television. The global box office, which had been severely impacted by the pandemic and evolving consumption trends, is finally recovering, with revenues expected to reach pre-pandemic levels by 2025. Streaming services like Netflix have seen significant growth, with global subscriptions increasing by 14% in 2021. According to the same report, the Philippines is among the top 20 film-producing economies in the world. However, of course, our local film industry is experiencing a lot of challenges. Kasama na po dyan ang amusement tax, ang mahal na presyo ng ticket sa sinihan, ang nagmamahal na presyo ng production, at marami pa pong ibang pain points na kailangan i-address. Although, it's very encouraging kasi yung movie ni Julia Barreto at ni Joshua Garcia ay talagang pumapalo ngayon sa takilya. Mahigit 200 million pesos na po ang kanilang kinita. This is outside of the Metro Manila Film Festival that enjoys an embargo on Hollywood films, which is why no choice but to watch Filipino films. Ngayon, despite Hollywood films that are also showing in cinemas, ay talagang maganda ang performance ng movie ni Joshua Garcia at ni Julia Barreto. Filipino participation in events such as the Annecy Film Festival in Annecy, France, where 11 animation studios generated initial sales amounting to 29 million US dollars. And the External Development Summit in Vancouver, Canada, which generated 46.5 million pesos worth of sales revenue, 14.3 million worth of contracts under negotiation, and 35 million US dollars worth of direct investments, demonstrates the significant economic impact of the creative industries. These figures, Mr. Speaker, are of Filipino animation firms that participated with the support of DTI, of course, and the Department of Information and Communications Technology. Mr. Speaker, despite all these incremental successes, there is a dire need to revitalize the Philippine film industry. As it is, the high cost of production and the low returns discourage producers who are struggling to recoup their costs, while expensive movie tickets, rampant online piracy, the lackluster push for Philippine branding in the international market, weak local entertainment market, and the wide skills gap and mismatch continue to beset the industry. Thousands of creatives and film workers may lose their jobs if this adverse trend persists. Mr. Speaker, it is for this reason that LGUs must endeavor to create regional film commissions to work alongside the Department of Trade and the Film Development Council under the Office of the President to provide incentives to encourage filmmakers to shoot in their localities. The return of investment of film incentive is 1:13, meaning for every 1 peso spent as investment, 13 pesos returns to your local economy. Plus, the film will also impact tourism outcomes and for the likes of Caramoan and Camarines Sur, even educational outcomes as well. Similarly, LGUs should consider relaxing amusement tax policies to extend a lifeline to the film and live events sectors. May all LGUs follow suit with the likes of Quezon City and Makati City, or if not, earmark amusement tax collections towards cultural and creative spending particularly on their local festivals and many other grassroots creative programs. Next slide. Switching gears, the global publishing industry has grown despite challenges in data measurement, influenced by trends such as digitalization, cross-industry, transmedia collaborations, particularly with digital platforms like TikTok and streaming services. According to the report, the Philippines is one of the top 5 countries with the most significant total publishing industry revenue in 2022, amounting to 381 million US dollars. The rise of book talk in the Philippines was an excellent way to promote books and readership, especially during the pandemic. The Philippine publishing market, including books, newspapers, magazines, is projected to experience moderate growth over the coming years. The market was valued at around 4.1 billion pesos in 2022 and is expected to reach approximately 4.8 billion pesos by 2029, driven largely by the rise of digital platforms and a growing middle class. In book printing, educational and professional books dominate, accounting for a significant share of the market. This is followed by children's books, which are also a critical segment. Self-publishing has also seen an increase as more Filipino authors choose to publish their works independently. Mr. Speaker, in light of the industry's continuous growth and its evolving landscape both globally and locally, it is imperative to update our existing policies, regulatory mechanisms, and legal frameworks. This is why the swift passage of House Bill 10482 is crucial. The proposed amendments to the Book Publishing Industry Development Act aim to redefine the term book to cover new and emerging formats like digital books, restructuring the National Book Development Board attached to the Department of Education to optimize its organizational framework, strengthen the government's regulatory framework for the book publishing industry for both text and trade book, espouse collaboration between the NBDB and other stakeholders in the book publishing industry, including educational institutions, authors, and publishers. Further, given the need to stimulate the local appetite for reading, copyright protection, with its promise to spur original and creative content, becomes a key strategy to revitalize the book publishing sector. We need more authors. We need more publishers. We need more bookstores and more original content that can attract the interest of readers. In filling this demand, copyright emerges as a powerful tool in encouraging our writers to produce more vibrant stories and content that could pique the many interests and curiosities of readers. To add, Mr. Speaker, it's important that we provide platforms for creators to be able to pitch their IP to one another. Meaning to say, owners of literary intellectual property should be able to pitch their work to film producers. Baka sakaling yung comic books nila, yung graphic novel nila, yung fiction nila ay maging pelikula. Even then, you can create transmedia synergies across the different creative sectors that even a comic book can be inspiration for the likes of Kenneth Cobonpue to create a bespoke signature furniture collection, as he recently did with Star Wars. On the other hand, the global recorded music market reached 28.6 billion US dollars in 2023, driven by streaming, which now accounts for over 2/3 of the market. Developing regions, particularly Sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America, have seen substantial growth in music revenues. Sadly, in the Philippines, more than 50% of Filipinos employed in the music industry earn less than 20,000 pesos per month, which almost falls a little over the minimum wage in NCR. According to a recent survey, 61.1% of Filipinos involved in music creation, production, distribution, and consumption are college degree holders, and the majority are freelancers. What's more, most of the respondents had non-music industry-related income to support their living expenses. So kailangan talagang rumakit kung ikaw ay isang music industry player. On this matter, we must develop policies and mechanisms to support fair compensation for music industry workers and provide avenues for sustainable income. We look forward to the road mapping exercise that's being funded by the Department of Trade and Industry. Now that we have a sectoral representative in the person of Mr. Gabriel Malvar to represent the audio and audiovisual media domain, we will be able to provide a stronger voice and representation for the music industry, which again can impact not just economic development and even export, but soft power, as is enjoyed by K-pop, Hallyu, and the rise of BTS, Jeans, New Jeans, Blackpink, and all these other K-pop groups. Next slide. The video game industry continues to outpace film and music in terms of revenue, with global revenues reaching $227 billion in 2023. The industry is increasingly intersecting with other creative sectors such as film and music, demonstrating its broad cultural impact. As such, we must explore opportunities for cross-industry syndication and investment in the gaming sector to harness its growth potential. Mr. Speaker, in the face of these burgeoning global trends, the creative economy is confronted with challenges such as data inconsistencies, varying definitions across regions, and impacts of digitalization. Developing countries like ours struggle with data scarcity, making it difficult to measure the full scope of the creative industries. While challenges remain, particularly in data gathering, the sector's growth potential, especially in developing regions, is substantial. As digitalization continues to transform the economic landscape, countries that adopt supportive policies and embrace cross-industry collaboration are likely to see the most significant benefits. The creative economy's role in driving cultural value and economic development is more critical than ever. Now let's move on to international trade in creative goods and services. Mr. Speaker, the international trade in creative output has seen impressive growth over the last 2 decades. In 2022, global export of creative goods reached $713 billion, marking a 3.5-fold increase since the early 2000s. However, this growth rate lags slightly behind the overall export growth of goods in general, which increased by 3.8 times during the same period. Next slide. On the other hand, creative services export have surged even more dramatically, rising 2.8-fold to a record $1.4 trillion in 2022. This nearly doubles the value of creative goods exports, highlighting the robust expansion in services compared to goods. The report reflects the Philippines as the top 4 creative services exporter in 2022, amounting to $3.3 billion. Despite this growth, the trade in creative goods and services remains concentrated within a few key product groups and countries. The world's major exporters, such as United States, China, Ireland, UK, Germany, Singapore, Netherlands, Japan, France, Switzerland, command 70% of global creative goods exports and 69% of creative services exports, underscoring a significant regional imbalance. Trade in creative goods is dominated by developing countries, while developed countries lead in creative services exports. Asia is the largest exporter of creative goods, but this is primarily driven by China, accounting for 35% of global creative goods exports. Europe is the leader in creative services, with $720 billion in exports, followed by Asia and North America. Developed economies still dominate creative services exports, but the share of developing countries has doubled over the past decade, reaching 20% now in the year 2022. Now let's move on to barriers. Mr. Speaker, In creative services, trade faces significant barriers, with trade costs for services being higher than for manufactured goods. Digital services face regulatory barriers and other costs related to cultural, geographical, and institutional variances. The World Trade Organization has noted a 14% decrease in trade costs for digitally delivered services between 1996 and 2018. In creative goods, tariff and non-tariff measures significantly impact trade of creative goods. Developing countries impose higher tariffs on creative goods than developed economies, with average applied tariffs at 9.9% in developing countries versus 2.4% in developed ones. Non-tariff measures have become more prevalent since 2000, affecting especially craft, design goods, and cultural heritage products. In addition, the global creative economy is faced with challenges in measuring creative trade. In terms of data capture, there are significant challenges in gathering comprehensive data on creative services, especially from developing countries. Many creative services, such as performing arts, are often underreported and undercaptured. There is also the complexity in classification. Distinguishing between different creative services categories is complex, and data comparability among countries is limited. The report relies on experimental data sets developed by UNCTAD covering 70% of available records. Now let's move on to policy solutions. The UNCTAD report suggests that we pursue policies such as trade liberalization. The WTO's General Agreement on Trade and Services, or GATS, promotes the gradual liberalization of trade and services, including creative services, but progress has been slow. According to the report, the adoption of a national regulatory framework shall likewise address these challenges. Developing countries should enhance their regulatory and institutional frameworks to better support and monetize creative services trade, especially in the digital realm. On e-commerce and digital economy, ongoing multilateral discussions on e-commerce at the WTO will have significant implications for trade. Countries need to be prepared for regulatory changes that might come from these discussions, particularly in the context of digital transmissions. Mr. Speaker, according to the report, there's need to improve collection and granularity of data on creative services to better understand dynamics and inform policy. Perhaps by mainstreaming discussions on creative industries within ASEAN, the Philippines can take the lead on the institutionalization of an ASEAN technical working group, and one of the immediate outcomes is the harmonization of data and finding areas of cooperation among member countries. I think we're going to be the host next year, if I'm not mistaken. So I would encourage the DFA, DTI, of course Malacanang, and the Office of the President to be able to spearhead and lead this initiative. We must also focus on reducing trade barriers that disproportionately affect our country and certain creative goods, such as craft and cultural heritage products. Let's move on to the next topic, which is digitalization and artificial intelligence in the creative economy. Mr. Speaker, the report also explored its use and how it's impacting productivity in the creative sector. It discussed how digitalization and AI are transforming it for the better, but also for the worse, significantly changing how products are produced, distributed, and consumed. This transformation offers opportunities for cost efficiency and a broader audience reach, but also introduces challenges related to quality, copyright, cultural homogenization, privacy, and data protection. The report emphasizes the importance of policy adaptations to leverage these technologies while addressing associated risks, particularly for developing countries facing digital divides and infrastructure gaps. Allow me to share some of the key findings of this report. Advertising. AI enhances efficiency in advertising by processing large data sets to spot trends and generate multiple ads automatically, optimizing their performance. This has led to increased investment in computing power to train complex AI models for more effective advertising strategies. Now, architecture. AI is utilized throughout the architectural process, from design and planning to construction and maintenance. It aids in topology optimization, urban planning, and the ideation of creative solutions, while also supporting smart building technologies for sustainability. AI improves design accuracy and efficiency, providing architects with innovative design scenarios and supporting maintenance through predictive analytics. Arts and crafts. AI contributes to digital crafting, enhancing efficiency by taking over routine tasks and enabling the creation of virtual art galleries and exhibitions. Artists use AI to create immersive digital showcases, with notable innovations in Africa where AI is used to explore contemporary identity and representation in art. The film industry. AI plays a crucial role in pre-production, from script analysis to audience preference prediction. It helps in creating more realistic special effects and improving workflow efficiency, such as automating video editing and restoring old films. However, AI's growing influence in script writing has sparked concerns among writers and actors, leading to strikes in Hollywood most recently, demanding protections against AI replacing human roles. The music industry. AI generates music by blending existing tracks and creating new compositions, pushing the boundaries of genre and collaboration. However, this raises legal challenges regarding copyright, especially with AI synthesizing the voices of existing singers without clear policies governing such practices. News and media. AI increases efficiency through automated content generation, including summaries, image recognition, and content recommendations. However, it also introduces challenges like deepfakes, which blur the line between fact and fiction, and the dependence of smaller media firms on technology platforms. The performing arts. AI enhances text research, script writing, production processes, creating more interactive and immersive performances. It also analyzes audience reactions to improve engagement, highlighting AI's potential to transform the performing arts landscape. Video games. AI improves video game design, interactivity, and decision-making, offering more realistic and immersive experiences. It enables procedurally generated content, allowing for personalized gameplay and dynamic storylines that adapt to player choices. Mr. Speaker, indeed, the rise of AI has transformed the production and even distribution of creative content to drive consumption. But with this progress comes inevitable disadvantages. Number one, widespread use of AI raises concerns about the homogenization of creative content, potentially diminishing cultural diversity. As you input data into the cloud, which data gains precedence and importance over other types of data? Is it the data of the developed countries over the data infused by developing ones? Is it the global north over the global south? In this light, maintaining quality and originality in creative output is crucial. Number two, the quality of AI-produced content is heavily dependent on the performance of algorithm and data used for training. Biases in the data can lead to a reduction in cultural diversity, potentially favoring cultural output, as I said, of developed countries over developing ones. Three, AI-driven art raises moral and economic concerns regarding appropriation. While appropriation is an accepted part of artistic creation, especially in the age of postmodern art, the economic dimension, particularly in terms of compensation, is very much contentious. 4. AI tools often prioritize commercially viable content, which can lead to a monocultural output that sidelines less mainstream or developing country artists. 5, the reliance on English for AI training puts non-English speakers, particularly from developing countries, at a disadvantage. 6, creators and artists in developing countries often lack the negotiation power to demand for fair compensation, exacerbating economic inequality in the creative sector. 7, AI complicates the enforcement of intellectual property rights, particularly in music and film, where AI-generated content can blur the lines of ownership and credit. The rise of AI has brought IPR issues, especially copyright, to the forefront. Existing copyright laws designed for an analog environment are struggling to adapt to new business models like streaming and the complexities of AI-generated content. Updated copyright frameworks are necessary to address these challenges, which are many. 8, the increasing reliance on AI for data processing and personalization raises significant piracy and data protection issues. 9, the rise of AI is altering the labor landscape, with potential decreases in employment, in automated roles, and increases in jobs related to AI development. The displacement of jobs due to AI, particularly in film and media, necessitates labor protections and policies to ensure fair compensation and job security. 10. Developing countries such as the Philippines face challenges in adopting AI due to gaps in digital infrastructure, skills, and regulatory frameworks, which is why we celebrate the initiative of the DTI and the DICT to develop AI roadmaps. There's also a Center for Artificial Intelligence Research that's currently funded by the DTI as part of its innovation push. And hopefully these resources can be made available to industry players to be able to guide its development and also ethical use. Mr. Speaker, the UNCTAD report highlights the transformative impact of digitalization and AI on the creative economy, offering both significant opportunity and complex challenges. So we look forward to the Philippines leaning in to these conversations, perhaps in partnership with our ASEAN neighbors, come up with a regional policy on AI similar to the European Union and what they've successfully done. It's very difficult to be able to propose an AI policy because technology advances in such a rapid pace, so there also has to be a degree of flexibility in terms of regulation. Now let's move on to market concentration and competition in the creative economy. Mr. Speaker, according to the report, key regulatory and competition policy measures that can help develop the creative economy include: 1, reviewing and modernizing regulations. Regulations should be updated to adapt to new market realities, particularly in dynamic industries like the music industry. 2, prioritizing flexible regulation. Mechanisms such as self-regulation, soft regulation, or even co-regulation are preferred over traditional command and control approaches, especially in technology-intensive markets like gaming. I think it's worthy to note and to celebrate that the advertising industry is self-regulating. They don't have a government agency that regulates them, but rather they have a supra-regulatory body that all advertising firms subscribe to, and they are a model for creative industries, especially digital ones, moving forward. 3, investing in international cooperation. It's very essential to tackle competition challenges as evidenced by UNCTAD's guiding policies on restrictive business practices. 4, updating guidelines. Clear standards regarding regulatory approaches should be accessible to market participants. For example, Brazil's Administrative Council for Economic Defense, or CADE, regularly updates its guidelines on digital markets. 5, considering market specificities. Authorities should evaluate competition cases considering the unique characteristics of the creative economy, such as barriers to entry and the implications for market competition. 6, flexible competition policy. 7, efficient design of competition remedies. And 8, avoiding one-size-fits-all approaches, as well as investing in market data. Mr. Speaker, let's move on to sustainable business practices. The report also delved into the matter of sustainability within the creative sector, emphasizing the importance of environmentally responsible practices and the promotion of social inclusion. It highlights how the creative sector can contribute to sustainable development by aligning their practices with economic, social, and environmental goals. The report explores the environmental impact of creative industries, particularly in the production of greenhouse gases, and outlines various sustainable business practices being adopted across subsectors to address these challenges. The impact of the creative industries in the environment includes $62 million in film production, averaging 2,840 tons of CO2, while Spotify emitted around 390,000 tons of CO2 in 2022, with 98.9% of emissions being Scope 3. Moreover, the UK festival industry generated 25,000 tons of CO2 in 2018, excluding audience travel. Our creative sector is not even at the level of measuring CO2 emissions at the moment, because we're still in the survival and even development mechanism. But certainly these are things that we have to start talking about. In terms of sector-specific environmental impacts, let's look at advertising. Major emissions stem from production processes and the demand created by advertising. The UK's advertised emissions are estimated at 208 million tons of CO2. Architecture. The sector accounts for 34% of global energy demand and 37% of CO2 emissions related to energy and processes in 2021. Craft. Emissions are mainly linked to the materials used, with a push towards sustainable sourcing and cleaner energy for tools. Design has a potential to reduce waste and promote sustainable consumption through design for environment approaches. Film and television. High emissions are linked to transportation, on-set energy use, waste, with films averaging 391 to 1,081 metric tons of CO2 depending on length. 6. Music. Emissions arise from vinyl record production, streaming, live events. Coldplay's recent tour reduced carbon dioxide emissions by 47% compared to their previous tour. But this is something that Coldplay really leaned into. We want to mount a tour that has a very low carbon footprint. So this has to be something that is intentional for our creative industry players in the music sector. 7, performing arts. The carbon footprint of UK theatre is over 50,000 tons annually, with initiatives focusing on energy-efficient venues and eco-friendly materials. 8, publishing. The impact is primarily from printing, involving substantial use of water, wood pulp, and fossil fuels. 9, video games. The industry's environmental impact comes from the production of consoles and energy-intensive gaming activities, with efforts like the Playing for the Planet initiative focusing on decarbonization. According to the report, considerations to mitigate the negative environmental impact of the creative industries could include 1, adopting a circular economy model, 2, sustainable design practices across architecture, fashion, craft, 3, green certification and standards, 4, public-private partnerships, fostering collaborations between government, businesses, the third sector to develop and implement sustainability initiatives, 5, promoting inclusivity, and many others. So, Mr. Speaker, in this matter, we must work together for the swift passage of House Bill 614, which proposes the creation of a Built Environment Council to champion architecture and its related policies. While infrastructure investment is crucial for economic growth, achieving sustainable development demands cooperation among diverse built environment professions, including architecture, interior design, civil engineering, environmental planning, and landscape architecture. Indeed, the creative industries have a significant role to play in advancing environmental sustainability and social inclusion. The last topic, Mr. Speaker, is really harnessing synergy for a whole of government and whole of society approach towards developing the creative sector. With the DTI and the Malikhaing Pinoy program that was made mention by the President in his SONA earlier this year, actually caters to the development of the creative sector in the absence of a mechanism that tags cultural and creative spending and the annual NEP, which becomes the GAB, which becomes the GAA. People will really only turn to the budget of the Malikhaing Pinoy, which currently is at 50 million, unfortunately, and we will certainly work together to increase the funding to be able to develop the creative sector. But the Malikhaing Pinoy encompasses a range of efforts, including infrastructure development, R&D, innovation, digitalization, creative education, the establishment of creative cities, support for exports and investments, and facilitation of a conducive business environment for creative enterprises. The Malikhaing Pinoy consists of a family of projects with a nationwide scope, including the Obra Design Masterclass. I was very fortunate to have attended the graduation of all the furniture designers from Cebu and Pampanga and Baguio, who underwent a month-long training with the likes of Kenneth Cobonpue here in Manila at the National Trade Training Center. It's a very, very promising program. Lunsod Lunsad, we provided over 40 to 50 million pesos worth of grants to cities from Region 1 all the way to BARM. Isabela City and BARM was one of the recipients, which then funds their creative proposals. The Young Creatives Challenge, which is a pet project of Senator Amy Marcos, this provided content creation grants to creatives from comic book making, playwriting, game development, literature, and many others. Advanced Creatives, Idea Creatives, the Ensayo Creative Hub, which is now in the Philippine Trade Training Center, Likha Sanay, and of course, Fiesta Haraya. And of course, the Philippine Creative Industry Month, which we launched earlier today in Trinoma. But to fully leverage the opportunities in these projects, we must look into essential role of intergovernment synergy because, Mr. Speaker, DTI cannot do it alone. DTI has to work with the whole of government to develop the creative sector across different pillars. This is crucial for the creative industries as it ensures a cohesive and comprehensive support system that harmonizes policies, resources, and efforts across local, regional, and national stratas. By aligning strategies and pooling resources, different government entities can address the diverse needs of the creative sector more effectively, fostering a more vibrant and sustainable industry. This collaboration not only streamlines processes and enhances innovation, but also strengthens advocacy and ensures that initiatives are both responsive and impactful, ultimately driving growth and maximizing the potential of the creative economy. So I'll name a few of these intergovernment synergies that we are currently working on. And we're very, very grateful that all the different department secretaries are very open to collaborating to advance the creative sector. Number one, cities of culture. We spoke to Secretary Ben-Hur Abalos late last year, followed up early this year, and recently in the budget hearing of DILG. And we're excited to be able to roll out a program, which is a competition style that the different cities across the country can apply to. It would be similar to the SGLG or the Seal of Good Local Governance, that when you win, you are provided a fiscal or a capital infusion or stimulus to be able to fund a creative initiative in your city. Of course, this is inspired by the Tourism Champions Challenge that the DOT and Secretary Frasco was able to roll out successfully in partnership with TIEZA, and we need more government agencies creating these competition-style programs to be able to galvanize our local chief executives to develop their local and grassroots creative economies. Number two, creative tourism promotions. When I met with Secretary Cristina in 2022, it laddered up to the creation and the organizing of a creative tourism summit in Bacolod City late last year. This was a very, very welcome development for our country's tourism product mix, which under her leadership introduced film tourism, and in addition to cultural tourism, there is now also creative tourism, which means that a tourist will not only eat the food, but they will also learn how to cook the food. They will not just buy the craft, but they will also learn how to weave the craft. So this is a welcome development in product development for the DOT and the crafting of creative tourism. But we should also look into leveraging on creative content for tourism outcomes. What do I mean by that? When Crazy Rich Asians came out, inbound tourism in Singapore increased 200, 300%. And this was supported by the Singaporean government in terms of incentives, subsidies, and that it became a Hollywood box office hit. Singapore was put on the map. Similar experiences in Croatia after Game of Thrones came out, in New Zealand after Lord of the Rings, in Thailand after Tomb Raider, and many other films that created quite the cultural impact. So, meaning to say, there's power in our films to be able to promote the Philippines, to get people to love the Philippines. There's also power in our theater to be able to position the Philippines as sort of like a Broadway of Asia. There's power in literature. A New York Times bestseller that tackles the beauty of the Philippines will inspire travelers to go to the Philippines just by the consumption of a book. So these are non-traditional tourism promotions activities that are that could work in consonance with our traditional tourism promotions activities, like joining travel fairs in Dubai or in London, or advertising Love the Philippines in billboards in Times Square, on the side of the bus in London, and many others. Number 3, Manila International Performing Arts Market. Currently, SITEM, which administers the Manila Fame, which is attached to the DTI, has a collaboration with the Cultural Center of the Philippines. They have taken this roadshow on how to empower and capacitate performing arts stakeholders on the aspects of how to tour their content across the country, but also across the ASEAN region and even internationally. So for performing arts and theater makers, the calibration of the economic and artistic mindset is to be able to mount a production, do it for 2 months, a month, sometimes 3 months, hopefully sell tickets to all these shows, and then the productions close. And eventually there is a rerun if it's successful. If the demand is there, then they will have a restaging. Sometimes the same IP gets restaged 10 years, 15 years later by a different theater company in a different style, which reveals the material in a different way. Now, there's an opportunity for us to be able to bring our shows globally as part of a soft power and cultural diplomacy push. These are activities that are undertaken by China when they fund dance companies to perform on Broadway or in the West End, because it introduces Chinese culture to the rest of the world through their ballet, through their Chinese opera, and many others. We can do the same for ours. But on top of that, we also need to introduce the concept of intellectual property and licensing. As a stakeholder in the performing arts sector, I normally produce, sometimes direct, foreign IP. Meaning to say, most recently we did Little Shop of Horrors. This is a Broadway show. I obtained the license to produce it here. I directed it here. It was successful, and then we move on. But what about Filipino intellectual property, like the recent Ang Huling El Bimbo musical, which features the songs of Eraserheads. Recently, Parokya ni Edgar also had a musical called Burugudun Stun Sugudun Stui. Right now, there is a One More Chance musical showing in PETA, which combines the intellectual property of One More Chance, the Star Cinema film rather, that starred John Lloyd Cruz and Bea Alonso, It features the songs of Ben and Ben, one of our top OPM artists. And these IPs are canned, but who's to say that these IPs cannot be obtained by theater companies abroad to be able to perform it either in English, if it's an English Filipino IP, or in their native language or their local dialect. Because we do that all the time with Broadway and West End shows. We bring it here, we locally produce it here. What precludes theater companies from abroad from doing the same? And so these are things that we have to look into as we start looking outward and establish ourselves globally. Which leads me to the next possible synergy, which is creative intellectual property, pitching, and syndication. If you're a filmmaker, who's to say that your film cannot be a play? Who's to say that your film cannot be made into a comic book or a graphic novel, and vice versa? If you're a comic book creator, who's to say that your comic book cannot be an animated series like 13, or a film produced by Viva or Star Cinema or Regal? Who's to say that if you are a chef and you have some kind of menu, it cannot evolve into something else entirely? So these transmedia syndications and creative IP opportunities is something that maybe government can play a role, not necessarily in business matching, but just providing opportunities for IP owners to be able to pitch their content. Because while we work on developing the productivity in the creative sector, we also need to work on helping them help each other. As we build markets and audiences for our creative content, myself as a theater maker, it would be great to be able to access the market of film. As a filmmaker, it would be great to be able to access the market of theater. That's why in the upcoming Metro Manila Film Festival, one of the entries will be Himala, the musical. Himala started as a film, which starred Nora Honor, our national artist for film. It was shot in Ilocos Norte. It was one of the most successful films in our cinematic history. The film was adapted into a musical, which ran several times in the Cultural Center of the Philippines and in PETA. And now the musical is becoming a film. So these transmedia synergies are really opportunities to grow the market and extend the revenue trajectory and lifeline of creative IP. Number 5, Centro Rizal transformation. Mr. Speaker, Centro Rizal is a regular program of the NCCA. The Centro Rizal is often housed in our foreign service posts, in our embassies. A lot of our colleagues have traveled abroad, paid courtesy calls to ambassadors, and you've probably seen the Centro Rizal maybe as a bust of Rizal in some corner of the embassy or as a room. But we have an opportunity to be able to transform our Centro Rizal system to be outward-looking, but also catering to the Filipino diaspora to keep them attuned and connected to our local history, to our local language, to our local culture. We have the British Council. We have the Instituto Cervantes, which is the cultural diplomacy arm of Spain. We have the Japan Foundation. Even Korea has a cultural diplomacy arm. The Centro Rizal can be the cultural diplomacy arm of the Philippines. As we start to introduce Filipino culture, we start to introduce Bagong Pilipinas to the rest of the world. So there's an opportunity for Centro Rizal to be revitalized, perhaps through legislation. Number 6, Malikhaing Kasaysayan program. Now, Mr. Speaker, I remember when we had a congressional inquiry on the state of publishing and print media, I asked if they enjoyed some kind of support from the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Because we referenced what the teleserye of GMA, which is Maria Clara at Ibarra, one of my favorite teleseries. I encourage everyone to go see it. It's on Netflix right now. When Mario Claret Ibarra came out, inadvertently, it impacted the productivity of the publishing and print media sector. The show, at its height, when it was on broadcast, led to a 300-400% increase of sales of No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo. And that's why I was asking the National Historical Commission, do you have an incentives program for content creators who will create work based on our Philippine history? I asked what participation they had in the production of Mario Claret Ibarra, or even Gomburza, the film, the Metro Manila Film Festival last year. And sadly, there was none. If there was, it's technical assistance. And so there's an opportunity to be able to create a new program within the NHCP to support the creation of content that tackles our nation's history. Because content creators need support, and they are valuable allies to our desire for nation building and even economic growth, since creative economy impacts that as well. So this is a program that hopefully we can pilot for next year, an incentives program within the National Historical Commission to support creators of content that mainstreams Philippine history. Of course, the National Broadband Program of the DICT really needs a full rollout because it impacts all the creative industries and many other synergies that really should be explored with the full implementation of the Creative Industry Law. So, Mr. Speaker and esteemed colleagues, the UNCTAD report clearly outlines the transformative power of the creative economy. However, it also highlights the challenges we face. As we move forward, let us commit to fostering an environment that supports innovation, embraces digital transformation, and prioritizes sustainability. By adopting necessary policies, investing in infrastructure, also digital, and enhancing collaboration, we can ensure that the creative economy not only thrives, but also contributes to a more inclusive and sustainable global future. I call upon all of you to join in these efforts, to support our creative professionals and creators and stakeholders, and to champion policies that will shape the future of the creative economy. Together, we can create a vibrant and equitable creative economy that benefits all. Together, we can make our nation the premier creative hub in ASEAN by the year 2030, a beacon of innovation and cultural excellence. Mr. Speaker, again, happy Philippine Creative Industries Month to everyone here. Woo! We did it. Please organize an event in your respective districts, a workshop, an exhibit, a talk, in partnership with the LGU as well. Let's spread the gospel of creativity. People always say, nako, creative industry, malayo naman yan sa bituka. Huwag na lang natin pansinin yan. But as you could see, 1.7 trillion pesos to our economy, 7 million jobs. These are consequential figures. So, nagbibigay ng trabaho ang creative sa mamamayang Pilipino. So, pagtuunan po natin ng pansin ng ating malikaing Pinoy. Maraming salamat at masanto si Agos Pinoy. Thank you.